I remember when I learned that Hamilton would be coming to the big screen, and it was pretty random actually. I was on Letterboxd, and I don't know how I did a search or something, and I discovered the poster for Hamilton in the options, and that showed me that this was going to be a movie. I thought it was fake, but I saw the cast list. It hadn't been released yet, obviously, but it was listed in there for when it was going to be open for people to watch it. Then, of course, COVID hit, and that apparently changed everything. It was dropped on Disney Plus. Fast forward to, I don't know, a few months ago. I happened to be out. I'd seen a poster for this release, and initially I wondered why the heck it was finally coming to theaters now. Then I learned later, of course, that this year Hamilton is celebrating its 10th anniversary. So with a one night only showing at theaters, nationwide, I believe. And I didn't know it was one night when I first saw the poster. Thought, okay, I'm gonna go see that. So I did not throw away my shot, and I went for that one night with a dear friend, and we had a great time. So let's talk about it. Hamilton. Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay, go. Before we dig in, let's make this clear. Yes, I'm a Hamilton fan. I wouldn't call myself a Hamilton nut, which I believe is a couple notches above just a regular fan. I've seen the play on stage a few times. I got a couple playbills, hanging around. So I nailed the show. I enjoy the music. I have some of the songs. I have a couple books. So yeah, but more than that, I'm a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I just think he's just a creative force. Whatever you think about his work, whether you think it's derivative or you think it's reached its peak, or however you look at it, he's still producing, and that's cool. I think at the end of the day, the win is producing, and he's done some great things since Hamilton. Of course, Moana is one of those things, an amazing effort. The Little Mermaid, also pretty good. Encanto, ridiculous. Like, it's just like he's, and also the Warriors. Warriors is one thing else I want to talk about, because I rewatched the movie again recently. I want to talk about the movie, but also at some point I want to make a video about Lin-Manuel Miranda and Issa Davis, their collaboration on the concept album of the Warriors. It's not Hamilton, but it's I think it's a solid follow up to Hamilton, and I'll talk about that a different time. But this is about Hamilton, or Hamilton, as it's been called this week, at least because of the 10-year anniversary situation that's happening. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what the heck that is. So if you've been living under a rock and don't know what the heck this is about, this is a musical about the first Treasury Secretary of this country, Alexander Hamilton. It is the story of his rise and his eventual death at the hands of Aaron Burr. First of all, I think this is an amazing masterwork. Not just from the writing perspective, everything Lynn did to produce this, but from a direction standpoint, Tommy Kail did an amazing job directing the show. I think from a cinematography standpoint, which is something I really want to talk about, because it's not something you see on stage. Having a film version of it is pretty cool, because you can almost see what it would be like as a live action movie. I feel like at some point it's inevitable that the show will become a live action film. And as much as I wanted to see it for years, but I don't know that I want to anymore because there's something that's so special about seeing the original cast on film, on the big screen, in a way that you wouldn't on stage. It's a one of a kind situation, and you cannot get that in a live action film. You just won't. Obviously, at this point, the cast is 10 years older. Whenever the live action film comes about, who knows when that's going to be, and maybe they'll have cameos, which would be kind of cool to see. It's going to happen. I feel like it will happen, and because I love the show and the story so much, I will probably see it. I don't know that I want to, but because we'll see. My feelings may change by the time that happens. But as far as this version is concerned, it's a cool way to experience the show. That's not how you would normally experience it. I think the coolest thing about how it's shot, there are certain angles and stuff that you don't. There's over the head shots. There are camera push-ins and cranes, dollies. There's all kinds of cool camera actions happening in a way that captures the not just the performances of the songs, but the the acting of it from different angles, and it puts you in the show. It puts you on the stage. You're in the middle of the action when the stage is moving, which is cool also because Hamilton is a show that if you've seen it, the stage design is really cool. And because the stage has a section in the center that moves, the way the film captures that too, the way the stage is in conversation with how the camera does stuff, that brings it to life it's alive in a different way. Obviously, the music is great. The first act is very strong. I was having a conversation with my friend about this, that both of us agree that the second act is a little bit, it slumps in certain parts. It's slower paced. It's still good. It's solid, but it's when you compare the two acts, the first act it really destroys the second act in terms of how good it feels. Almost every song it's just electric and alive and just like hit after hit after hit. Even the little mini songs in between, like the bridge songs that connect major songs to the other songs, those are great. What's cool about how much of a hook the first act is that by the time you get through the first act, you're also engaged in the story. So you probably don't care as much that the music, the songs on the second act don't match up to the first act stuff, but the story is so engaging. The way Lynn managed to tell the story, it almost matters less. So it's not a huge deal, but it is something that's noticeable. That's one of the things that is, if you have a criticism, that might be one thing that I would say. The other thing is something about this performance of the show overall. My understanding is that the movie, this version of the show, is put together from two nights, the last two nights of shows of the original cast members, or the majority of the original cast members, which is great. However, there were certain things that I noticed in performances that I would have wanted to be maybe tighter. There was some looseness there that I think took away from the enjoyment of hearing how certain lines were delivered, how certain songs were sung. I might have preferred if the film had been shot in the middle of the run. So the original cast members were on the show for maybe about a year and some change. And I feel like if the film was shot maybe 6 months into their run, you would have been right at the peak of the performances, meaning at that point you're in the middle of your rhythm. You have your rhythm established. You've been doing the shows, whatever, 6 nights a week or whatever it is at that point for 6 months. You are pretty honed in on performances, of course, because they know that the stuff is committed to muscle memory, and the stuff so well that there will be some fluidity, some looseness, whatever. But I feel like where the looseness comes in might have been different, which might have been more enjoyable, I think. And for me, this is just my feeling. And I think it's hard also to watch it when you know the music so well. Your brain is expecting the songs to be performed how it sounds on the album, and that's not it. For the most part it is, but there are nuances and stuff that throw you off. So your rhythm when you're singing along or whatever it is thrown off a little bit. But again, not really a criticism, but it's something that I noticed when I thought more about it. It felt like, well, it might have been better to have it at the middle of the run for the original cast. I talked to another friend several months ago who had seen the show on Broadway more recently. Obviously, the original cast is not on the show, but I think he watched the show and then I think he watched it on Disney Plus or whatever it is, and he was talking about how Lin is not good for the role. He can't sing. His performance is stale. And I had to disagree with him. I said, well, you're entitled to your opinion. But for me, Lin worked for me. He's not trying to be like a singer. And again, it's not a secret that Lin is not he can sing, but he's not supposed to be the person who's going to be doing these ballads and doing all this crazy thing. I think the draw for a lot of people is you expect Lin to be doing mostly a lot of the rapping, because that's sort of the bread and butter of where he's coming from in terms of, if you look at any of his previous work. So I think given that, the places where he is expected to sing work, because the singing is more acting singing and not like singing like how Philippa Sue does in the role of Eliza Hamilton, or how Renee Ellis Goldsberry does as Angelica Schuyler. Like, they're singing, and Lin, he's not meant to be belting out serious notes and stuff, I don't think. And so for me, Lin worked. And when you go down the line, of course, obviously his foil in this movie or in this story is Leslie Odom as Aaron Burr. He's fantastic, obviously. So in a lot of ways, I see Hamilton and Burr as Hamlet and Fortinbras. If you know the play Hamlet, how Hamlet and Fortinbras are each other's foils, even though Fortinbras he's a secondary character in that story. Fortinbras and Hamlet, like Hamilton and Burr, are opposites. They started off in opposite positions, and then they, over time, take each other's positions. So Hamilton in the show is very much action driven, and Aaron Burr is the opposite. He's going to observe and wait and see what the situation brings, and then he'll act. And over time, though, as the story goes on, they eventually switch roles. But it takes a lot of buildup, a lot of story stuff, a lot of stuff happens in both of their lives that lead to them making those decisions, where Burr eventually becomes the person who is going to take action, and Hamilton sort of recedes and steps back and does not take as much action as he used to when he was younger. Hamlet and Fortinbras are the same way. Chris Jackson is fantastic as George Washington. His performance, primarily, One Last Time is probably the peak. He's got a lot of stuff in this show, but I think One Last Time is his. Oh, you really felt the emotion. It's almost like going to church. Chris Jackson's performance of One Last Time is a church experience. If you've been to certain kinds of churches, you will be familiar with the spirit and how it moves when certain people are performing music, certain songs. Chris Jackson, his performance is like that. It's cool to see on the big screen too, because you feel it also in a different way, that it almost pulls you in. It pulls you into the screen. You're feeling the emotions with him. Philippa Sue is amazing as Eliza. She's a solid partner for Lin's Hamilton. My favorite, though, probably my favorite character in the whole show is Angelica. She's just, of course, and Unsatisfied is probably my favorite song. It's such a great, because what's cool about musicals is that the songs, not only are they're good songs, they're catchy or whatever, they also have to convey story stuff and character stuff. And then you have songs that are solely character songs from one character's perspective. And it's like it's their whole songs that tell you all about them in one song. So in this show, obviously My Shot is Hamilton's, that's his whole character. My Shot is everything about, it tells you everything you need to know about who this guy is. He is tenacious, he's action driven, and the song is all about that. And it tells you a little bit of backstory about how he got like that, and then why he's hungry and he's got this fire and he's got to do stuff. And the song is just, hey man, don't throw away your shot. And he's not throwing away his shot. He's constantly taking action. And then for Burr, you've got Wait For It, which is again everything you need to know about his character, how he constantly assesses and observes and waits for stuff before he does anything. Everything you need to know. So Satisfied that's the thing. Eliza doesn't necessarily have anything like that, and I don't count Helpless as that really, as her character song. The Helpless is more about, her falling in love with Hamilton. I think you get more about her towards the end of the show because, as you see, Eliza's not a helpless person, but she falls helplessly in love with Hamilton, and that's there's. And then there are pockets in the show where she's helpless to stop him from taking certain actions or whatever it is. Okay, all right. That's not really a character. To me, that's not really a character thing. That doesn't tell me who Eliza is until the latter half of the show, which is a different situation. She doesn't have a song that does that, really. Like a character song, like Satisfied is. Angelica is a fantastic character. You could make a case that Angelica is probably more correct for Hamilton. And I like that there's, throughout the show, at least throughout the first act and a little bit of the second act, there's suggestions, little hints of how close they are. And I love that. And so Satisfied is, oh man. Not only is it a great song, it's well written and well performed. I think Renee is just, she destroyed the song. She just murdered it. It's so great, so good. Yeah, probably that's one of the highlights for me in the whole of the story is Satisfied. Of course, the show as a whole is great because the story is cool. Like I'm a fan of the story, how this version of the story is told. Daveed Diggs is ridiculous, playing dual roles as Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. He's just full of life. He's bouncy. I loved him. I thought he was great. And then Anthony Ramos is great. Everybody is killing in the show. And then of course you have Ariana DeBose, the Bullet, part of the ensemble of the show. It's really cool to see her. When I see her, I always think of if you've ever seen the White House performances of some of the songs for Hamilton during the last days of President Obama's administration, there's a show where One Last Time is performed. It's probably my favorite version of the song. There's such a beautiful emotional moment near the crescendo of the song, or in the middle of that, the last sort of climactic section of that song. The cameraman is panning across, looking at all the performers as they're singing. And there's a really emotional section where Ariana DeBose is singing and she's in tears. And I really wish that the cameraman had held on to that a little bit longer. I understand why they probably moved away, because it seemed like there was probably maybe something that felt like almost intrusive a little bit. If it were me, I might have moved away too. If she hadn't opened her eyes, I would have kept the camera there a little bit longer. But something about that is just it's quite emotional. And several of the songs in this show feel like that. There's sections where you can't help but get emotional, get teary-eyed, or in some cases outright cry. And what was cool about this experience, though, is that I heard that in the theater. I heard people sniffling, and and again, I was one of those people, so it was cool to collectively do that with other people and hear people sing some of the songs and stuff too. So we were singing and dancing and stuff, and and then almost everyone was trying to be respectful as they sang. No one was like belting out songs. They were like singing at a polite volume, but you could hear them, and it was cool to have that group experience. You imagine that's what it would be like, and that's actually what it is like when you go to a live show. And that's something that feels like that's a constant. If you know the show well, you're going to be singing some songs, but you don't always have the original cast, which is what this has, and it's a treat. And I think having seen it several different times with several different casts, it's always good because the foundation is fairly strong, so it's going to be good. But this is special. It's a special sort of capsule of having the show with the original cast members there. And then look, I'm messing up. Forgive me. I messed up. I can't get through this and not talk about Jonathan Groff, who plays King George. He is a character. He is so into it. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, if you've seen online, there's a lot of talk about the spit that comes out as he performs, particularly in that first number, the first time he's out. I remember when it came out on Disney Plus, that was one of the conversation pieces. So now we have it on a big screen. You can't avoid it. It's all in there. It's all in there. But I think that's something that adds to the character of it. I like that it's not super polished and things aren't like extra perfect. This is the other thing about the performances at that stage, the last 2 nights of the original cast performances. And I think that's what I was getting at. There was something about, I like that it's less polished because you can almost feel that this is the end of their run, but it's still so tight that it's not as if how people are performing is off, that it messes up the experience somehow. But if you were to take it maybe a couple of shows before that, maybe it might have been that much tighter. If you've seen it in the theaters this time, before the show actually starts, there is a mini documentary with several members of the original cast. They're acknowledging the 10th anniversary of the show, and they are just talking about their experiences on the show. And it's a celebratory little mini, like a short film lead into the show. And I think it was a really great addition to see that you're seeing them now 10 years older, 10 years later, just talking about their experiences. And that's kind of cool. It's a cool way to have them welcome the audience into the show. So I was a fan of that. I don't know that I have anything else to say about this about this music, about this situation. It's an excellent masterpiece of a work of art. And if by any chance at this time in life, in 2025, you have not experienced Hamilton in any form, you're missing out. And I think that even if you don't like musicals, you might come away enjoying this one. That's going to do it for this review on here. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you hanging out and listening to me nerd out about Hamilton. Take it easy, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.